January 1943. Berlin. Night presses against the windows of the Abwehr headquarters. Inside, the light is steady. Papers lie flat. Maps stay pinned. Coffee cools in porcelain cups. A German intelligence officer reads a report sent from occupied Europe. The language is precise. The details feel ordinary. Rail movements, unit morale, fuel shortages. Nothing alarming, nothing suspicious. This is how war is supposed to look from a desk. Clean lines, reliable sources. Information flowing inward like blood through veins. For years, Germany has trusted its spy network. Men recruited, trained, sent across borders. Radios hidden in attics. Codes memorized and burned. Messages tapped out in darkness and carried through the air to listening stations at home. The system feels solid, proven, untouched. What the officer does not see is the silence around the truth. Every agent he trusts now speaks with another voice. Every transmission passes through hands he does not know. Every report confirms expectations already formed. Germany believes it is watching the Allies. In reality, the Allies are writing the script, and soon entire armies will move based on information that was never real. Long before tanks crossed borders, Germany placed deep faith in information. German military culture valued planning, precision, control. Intelligence was not a support function, it was a foundation. By the time World War II began in September 1939, Germany already believed it possessed one of the most effective intelligence systems in Europe. At the center of this system stood the Abwehr. Formally established as the Military Intelligence Service of the German Armed Forces, the Abwehr operated under Admiral Wilhelm Canaris. Its mandate was broad: espionage abroad, counterintelligence, sabotage, political intelligence. It relied heavily on human sources. Agents recruited from expatriates, prisoners, sympathizers, opportunists. Men and women who could blend into occupied Europe, Britain, and neutral states. This reliance on human intelligence shaped everything. Reports came not from machines, but from people. People who observed ports, rail lines, factories. People who listened in cafes. People who counted aircraft on runways. Their words carried weight because they were assumed to come from lived experience. In the early years of the war, this confidence seemed justified. Germany moved fast. Poland fell in weeks. Denmark and Norway collapsed in days. France followed in 6 weeks in the summer of 1940. Intelligence appeared to validate German assumptions. Enemy morale was brittle. Command structures were slow. Political leadership hesitated. Success reinforced belief. Belief hardened into doctrine. German intelligence officers came to see their network not as fragile threads, but as a web, a system that reached everywhere, a system that could be trusted to tell the truth because it had done so before. But this confidence masked structural weaknesses. The Abwehr was fragmented. Rivalries existed with the Sicherheitsdienst, the SS intelligence service. Coordination suffered. Vetting of agents often prioritized speed over reliability. Many agents were poorly trained. Some were ideologically unreliable. Others were motivated by money rather than loyalty. Most critically, German counterintelligence underestimated the enemy. British intelligence did not need to eliminate German agents. It needed to control them. By 1940, as German bombs fell on London and British cities burned, MI5 began to understand something vital. German spies entering Britain were not ghosts. They were visible, trackable, arrestable. And instead of silencing them, Britain made a quieter decision. Keep them alive. Let them speak. But only with words that Britain chose. Germany, meanwhile, continued to read reports that felt routine, familiar, safe. The war from Berlin still looked orderly, and that belief would soon be tested in ways German intelligence was not prepared to see. By the summer of 1940, Britain stood alone. France had fallen. The Low Countries were occupied. German forces lined the Channel coast. Invasion plans existed even if they were uncertain. The pressure on Britain was constant. Air raids, naval threats, fear of collapse. Inside this atmosphere, British intelligence began to adapt. MI5, responsible for counterintelligence inside the United Kingdom, faced a clear reality. German agents would keep coming, some by parachute, some by boat, some through neutral countries. Killing or imprisoning every spy solved one problem but created another. Germany would notice the silence. The absence of reports would raise suspicion. So Britain chose a more dangerous path. Every German agent captured on British soil was given a choice: execution, long imprisonment, or cooperation. Many chose to cooperate. Some were coerced. Some were pragmatic. A few even became loyal to their new handlers. What mattered was control. Radios seized, codes preserved, messages rewritten line by line under British supervision. Each transmission carefully shaped to appear authentic. This system became known as the double-cross system. It was not built overnight. It required patience, psychological understanding, deep study of German expectations. British handlers learned what Berlin wanted to hear and then fed it slowly, carefully, never too much. False information had to feel imperfect, slightly uncertain, occasionally wrong in harmless ways. Trust was built not through brilliance, but through consistency. German intelligence accepted the reports because they matched its assumptions. Britain was weak. Britain lacked manpower. Britain feared invasion. Britain could be pressured into mistakes. At the same time, Allied intelligence expanded beyond Britain. The United States, still neutral for much of this period, began to cooperate quietly. Information sharing increased. Intelligence officers learned from British methods. Deception became institutional knowledge, not an experiment. By 1942, after the United States entered the war, Allied intelligence had reached a new level of coordination. MI5, MI6, American services, and military planners began to treat intelligence not as observation, but as influence. They were no longer just watching Germany. They were shaping German decisions. Entire deception plans were drafted like military operations. False units created on paper. Fake commanders invented. Radio traffic simulated. Double agents became the voices that gave these illusions credibility. German intelligence read these messages and adjusted plans accordingly. Units were held back. Defenses reinforced in the wrong places. Threats imagined where none existed. All of this unfolded quietly, slowly, month after month. By the time Germany began preparing for what it believed would be the next major Allied move, it was already operating inside a carefully built illusion. And the deeper the illusion grew, the harder it would be to escape. Angle 1. The human angle. Trust inside the system. Inside German intelligence offices, the war was filtered through paper and habit. Officers did not see the battlefield. They saw reports, typed pages, familiar phrasing, names of agents they believed they knew. Many had recruited these men themselves. Some had met them before the war. Others had trained them, shaken their hands, and watched them depart. Trust was personal. An agent who reported regularly became reliable by default. Consistency mattered more than brilliance. A steady flow of believable information created comfort. Doubt faded when nothing seemed wrong. German analysts worked long hours comparing messages, aligning them with aerial reconnaissance and intercepted communications. When reports matched expectations, confidence increased. When they contradicted assumptions, they were questioned, not the system itself. This was not incompetence, it was human nature. No intelligence officer wants to believe his sources are compromised. Admitting that meant admitting failure. It meant accepting that months or years of work had been wasted. So the system protected itself. Warnings were softened. Doubts were buried in footnotes. Reports that confirmed existing beliefs rose to the top. Those that challenged them stalled. The tragedy was subtle. German intelligence did not collapse. It functioned smoothly. That was the danger, because every report that arrived from controlled agents reinforced a shared illusion. Britain was weaker than it appeared. Allied coordination was poor. Large operations were unlikely. Each belief fed the next. And by the time doubts began to surface, they no longer mattered. Decisions had already been made. Troops had already been positioned. The human need for certainty had locked the system in place. Angle 2, the tactical angle. Moving armies with words. Intelligence shapes movement. In World War II, a single report could delay a division. A rumor of an invasion could freeze armor hundreds of kilometers away. A warning about a landing site could shift defenses overnight. The Allies understood this. Through controlled agents, they began feeding tactical details that mattered just enough to be acted upon. Reports of troop concentrations that did not exist. Descriptions of training exercises presented as invasion rehearsals. Sightings of equipment deliberately misinterpreted. German planners reacted rationally. They adjusted patrols, reinforced coastlines, held reserves back from the Eastern Front. Each decision made sense in isolation. Collectively, they weakened Germany's ability to respond to the real threat. The deception did not need to be perfect. It needed to be credible. Enough to introduce hesitation, enough to divide attention, and hesitation, in war, costs time. Time was the one resource Germany could not replace. While German forces waited for attacks that never came, Allied forces prepared for the ones that would. The battlefield was already shifting, not through fire or steel, but through belief. And belief, once weaponized, was difficult to disarm. Angle 3, the technological angle. Radios that spoke for both sides. Every deception required a voice. In World War II, that voice traveled through radio waves. German intelligence depended heavily on wireless communication. Agents were trained to transmit at set intervals, short bursts, familiar rhythms, identifiable habits. German listening stations tracked these patterns closely. They believed consistency meant authenticity. British counterintelligence understood this dependence and exploited it. When an agent was captured, his radio was not destroyed. It was preserved. His codes were kept intact. His transmission style was studied in detail. Handlers learned his mistakes, his pauses, his preferred abbreviations. Messages sent from Britain to Germany sounded exactly like the man Germany had trained. This was not simple signal spoofing. It was performance. Operators deliberately made small errors, minor spelling mistakes, slight inaccuracies that could be corrected later. These imperfections increased credibility. Perfect intelligence is suspicious. Flawed intelligence feels human. German radio intercept units monitored signal strength and location. British operators adjusted power levels to match expected distances. Even direction finding was considered. Transmissions were timed to avoid overlap with other known signals. The technology became invisible. German analysts focused on content, not origin. As long as the radio spoke in a familiar voice, the message was trusted. By 1943, dozens of German agents inside Britain were transmitting under Allied control. Germany believed it was running a vast intelligence network inside enemy territory. In reality, it was listening to a carefully curated narrative. Angle 4. The leadership angle. Decisions made in Berlin. Intelligence only matters when leaders act on it. Reports from the Abwehr moved upward, from analysts to staff officers, from staff officers to planners, from planners to senior command, eventually to Adolf Hitler himself. Hitler distrusted many institutions, but he trusted patterns, repetition, confirmation. When multiple sources said the same thing, he believed it. Controlled agents provided exactly that. Multiple reports described Allied weakness in southern England. Others suggested the main invasion would strike far from the most obvious beaches. Some emphasized internal disagreements among Allied commanders. These messages reinforced Hitler's own instincts. He believed the Allies lacked unity. He believed they feared decisive confrontation. He believed deception would be crude if attempted at all. As a result, German forces were held in reserve. Panzer divisions waited for threats that never materialized. Coastal defenses were strengthened in areas that would never be tested. When doubts arose, Hitler often dismissed them. The intelligence seemed too consistent to ignore. Leadership did not question the system. It leaned on it. And in doing so, Germany surrendered initiative to an enemy that controlled the flow of belief. The stage was now set. Not for a single lie, but for the largest deception operation of the war. And when that operation reached its peak, the consequences would be irreversible. By late 1943, the war had entered a new phase. Germany was under pressure on every front. The Eastern Front consumed men and machines at an unsustainable rate. Allied bombing intensified over German cities. Industry strained, fuel thinned. Every decision now carried weight. This was the moment the Allies had prepared for. Deception was no longer defensive. It became strategic. In London, planners understood that the coming invasion of Western Europe would succeed or fail before the first soldier touched sand. The battlefield would be decided in German headquarters weeks earlier. By what they believed, by where they waited, by where they did not. The operation took shape quietly. A phantom army was created on paper, not as rumor, but as structure. Units were named, commanders assigned, supply depots invented, training schedules leaked through controlled agents. Radio traffic filled the air, steady and convincing. This force appeared to gather in southeastern England, directly across from the Pas de Calais. The shortest route to France, the most obvious landing site, the place Germany already feared most. German intelligence accepted it. Reports from multiple agents described preparations. Inflatable tanks seen from a distance. Landing craft counted from cliffs. New airfields rumored. German analysts compared messages and found alignment. Everything pointed to Calais. Inside German command, the conclusion felt unavoidable. The Allies would strike where logic demanded. Speed, proximity, shock. German defenses responded. Divisions were stationed away from Normandy. Armored units were held back to counter a landing that never came. Commanders were ordered to wait for confirmation before moving reserves. Every false report tightened the trap. The deception did not shout. It whispered, day after day, week after week. Small confirmations layered on top of old ones. No single message carried the lie. The system itself did. By the spring of 1944, German intelligence believed it understood Allied intent better than ever before. That confidence was fatal, because when the real signals began to appear, they were filtered through months of expectation. Any contradiction was treated as diversion, any uncertainty as noise. The Allies had not blinded Germany. They had taught it to see the wrong thing clearly. June 5, 1944. Night settles over southern England. Aircraft engines warm on runways. Paratroopers stand in lines. Faces darkened, equipment heavy. Orders have already been issued. There will be no recall. The moment has passed when deception can be adjusted. Now it will be tested. Across the channel, German intelligence continues to read familiar signals. Radio traffic still suggests a large force in southeastern England. Controlled agents report delays, weather concerns, final preparations that seem close but not immediate. The pattern holds. Nothing breaks expectation. Then, just after midnight, reports arrive from Normandy. Parachutes, small landings, scattered drops. German commanders interpret them through the lens they have been given. Diversion, feints, distraction before the real blow at Calais. This belief spreads upward quickly. At dawn on June 6th, Allied troops begin landing on the beaches of Normandy. Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, Sword. The scale is immense. Naval gunfire, air support, waves of infantry. But German high command hesitates. Reserves remain locked in place. Panzer divisions wait for confirmation of the main invasion. Hitler himself delays release authority, believing the Normandy landings are a secondary effort. Hours pass. Every minute costs lives on the beaches. Every minute allows Allied forces to expand footholds. Roads are secured, bridges held, supply lines established. German intelligence continues to receive messages that reinforce the lie. Agents report the main force is still assembling near Calais. The Normandy landings are described as costly but limited. The lie does not collapse instantly. It persists. Even as Allied troops push inland, German command holds back critical units. Fear of a larger landing keeps forces frozen. The deception, built over months, still controls thought. By the time the truth becomes undeniable, the window has closed. Normandy is no longer a landing, it is a front. The Allies have broken through the psychological barrier first. The military breakthrough follows. Germany does not lose Normandy because it lacks courage or manpower in that moment. It loses because it trusted information that was never its own. And once belief fails, recovery is impossible. The first days after June 6, 1944, are defined by confusion. German field commanders in Normandy report heavy fighting and growing Allied strength. Requests for reinforcements increase. Messages grow urgent. The scale of the landings can no longer be denied at the front. But higher command hesitates. For weeks, intelligence had insisted that Normandy was not decisive, that the real invasion would come elsewhere, that the forces gathering across from Calais still posed the main threat. This belief does not vanish overnight. Panzer divisions remain positioned north. Coastal defenses elsewhere stay on alert. Orders move slowly through a chain of command already strained by bombing and poor communications. By the time reserves are released in force, Allied troops have secured ports, expanded beachheads, and established air superiority over the battlefield. Movement by day becomes nearly impossible for German units. Roads turn deadly. The deception has achieved its purpose. Germany does not lack information in these days. It lacks trust in its own reality. Every report is weighed against months of expectation. Commanders fear committing forces too early or to the wrong place. This delay proves decisive. Allied logistics begin to flow at scale. Supplies pour in. Men arrive in numbers Germany can no longer match in the West. Each passing day shifts the balance further. German intelligence now faces an internal reckoning. Questions arise. How could so many agents be wrong? How could the picture have been so consistent and yet so false? But there is no time for answers. The front moves faster than analysis. Decisions must be made under fire. The cost of deception is paid in ground lost and opportunities missed. The belief system that once guided German planning now collapses into uncertainty. And uncertainty in war is more dangerous than ignorance. The failure does not end in Normandy. As Allied forces push east through France in the summer of 1944, the deeper impact of the deception becomes clear. German intelligence is no longer trusted the way it once was. Reports are questioned, patterns dismissed, confidence erodes. Inside the German command structure, blame spreads quietly. Some point to the Abwehr, others to leadership interference, others to the nature of intelligence itself. No single failure can explain what happened. That is the most unsettling truth. The Allies did not defeat German intelligence by overpowering it. They hollowed it out from within. Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, already under suspicion, loses what influence he has left. By early 1945, the Abwehr is dismantled and absorbed into the SS intelligence apparatus. The old system ends not with reform, but with dissolution. For the Allies, the lessons endure. Deception becomes doctrine, not as trickery, but as operational planning. Future wars will treat intelligence as a means of shaping enemy behavior, not just observing it. The success of controlled agents, false armies, and coordinated misinformation changes how militaries think about truth. Information becomes terrain. Belief becomes a vulnerability. In the post-war world, intelligence services across the globe study this period closely. Manuals are written, methods refined. Counterintelligence grows more sophisticated. World War II proves something unsettling. You do not need to destroy an enemy's eyes. You only need to decide what they see. And once trust is compromised, even accurate information arrives too late to matter. The shadow of this operation stretches far beyond 1944. It reshapes the relationship between knowledge and power in modern conflict. This story is not about spies in trench coats or dramatic betrayals. It is about belief. Germany entered World War II with confidence in systems built on discipline and experience. Its intelligence services were not foolish, they were methodical. They relied on people, patterns, and consistency. That was their strength. It also became their weakness. The Allies did not win this battle with a single lie. They won it by patience, by understanding how trust forms, by learning that information does not need to be true to be powerful. It only needs to be believed. What happened inside German intelligence during the war shows something timeless about conflict. Armies move because minds decide first. Weapons follow belief, not the other way around. Once Germany accepted a false picture of reality, every correct signal was filtered out. Doubt became inconvenience. Reality became noise. This is why deception remains one of the most enduring tools of warfare. It works not by hiding everything, but by revealing just enough. In the end, the greatest damage was not done on the beaches of Normandy. It was done months earlier, in quiet offices, through reports that felt safe, familiar, and routine. History remembers tanks, aircraft, and soldiers. But beneath every battlefield lies a quieter struggle, one for perception, one for certainty. And in World War II, the Allies proved that controlling belief could shape the fate of nations.